Hello, everybody. It's Marcy again from wavesofcommunication.com, and I'm here with another video. It's going to be a live Q&A. So if you're joining me live, this is your opportunity to get your questions answered. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Let me introduce myself quickly. My name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech-language pathologist and language facilitation consultant. And what I do is I help parents teach your late-talking kids how to use the words they need to share all of their wisdom with the world through what I call language facilitation strategies. Now, these strategies that I put out in these videos are general, and if you are interested in coaching and getting specific strategies, then you should visit wavesofcommunication.com to learn about how to work with me as a client or to access my book or independent study program where you can learn to become a language facilitator. Because what I have found over 30 years of practice as a speech and language pathologist is that parents and caregivers are the best language facilitators. And especially right now, while everyone is spending so much time at home together, you have the opportunity to use this time with your child to teach them all the spoken language that you're looking for. So today's video, I've got just kind of two halves to this topic. What we're going to be talking about is Stim behaviors or stimulation behaviors or stimming. And these are the behaviors that kids will display that are repetitive, that are basically behaviors that are communication. All behavior is communication, by the way. And these behaviors are communicating a sense of regulation or unregulated state. And the purpose of these behaviors, these STIM behaviors, is for a child to communicate a process, kind of talk themselves or work themselves, I guess I should say, through the process of self-regulation, because that's what everyone does with STIM behaviors. We are overstimulated or in some way triggered to have a reaction to our environment or some kind of input that causes us to be in an unregulated state. It doesn't have to be a bad or good, it just means out of balance, okay? And when you're in this out of balance state where you're not calm and soothing and you're not sleeping, if you're unregulated, you will unconsciously do things to do this. So let me get into what we're going to talk about. And then actually after we talk about STIM behaviors, I'm going to give you a 4-step process to help you move through and use these STIM behaviors, help work with them with your child, okay? All right, so this video was inspired by my friend Ben. He is a boy with autism, and he and his mom, he wrote it with his mom's help, really, wrote a book called I Flap My Hands When I'm Happy. Now, this is not Ben's first book. He has a whole platform called Maybe Autism Is My Superpower, and this particular series, this It's Okay series, this is the first book in his series. It's been wonderfully received by everybody out in the online community. That's how I met Ben and his mom, was through their community. And so this book really inspired this video because Ben's feeling about it is, stimming happens with a lot of kids, especially kids with autism, and it's okay? Because the whole purpose is their goal is helping children who have autism feel more understood and accepted. And these STIM behaviors have a tendency to be very stigmatic. I don't know how to say. I'm not saying the right word, I'm sure. They have dogma. They cause people to make fun of kids, and they cause kids to feel bad when they do these STIM behaviors and people make fun of them and just feel more accepted by the world, okay? So what we're going to do is first I'm going to talk about STIM behaviors, and just I want to let you know that everyone, all humans use STIM behaviors. Look at this lady here. This is a very common nervous STIM behavior that you'll see people use, but you could even use this same behavior if your hands are cold, super cold, you would be rubbing your hands. If you're anxious or waiting for someone, if you're bored and not even thinking about it, you see, because these kinds of just these hand movements by themselves, they don't tell a whole lot. They are a reaction behavior that is happening because this particular person, this human, their sensory system is out of regulation in one way or another, and they have that irregulation has caused them to do a behavior. In that case, rub their hands, okay? Let me show you another one. This little girl is she's got a happy behavior triggered by these bubbles, and look what she's doing. She's automatically clapping in her hands and waving her hands around. She's automatically opening her mouth and smiling because these are also STIM behaviors. Because when we're happy, we're stimulated to do things with our body. We smile, we wave our hands. When we get excited talking, we wave our hands, right? These are totally normal behaviors, okay? STIM behaviors are normal and everyone has them. And that's the first thing that everybody needs to know now. But the problem happens, of course, in situations like this when you have a child who has STIM behaviors because they're nonverbal and they react in ways that are not words. And every time a child is nonverbal or a human is nonverbal, they're going to use different behaviors. In this boy's case, it's eye blinks. But what you need to understand, and the reason I chose eye blinks for this video, was because STIM behaviors are subconscious, okay? They come in many forms, not just flapping hands or toe walking, lining up. I mean, every single person out there who has a child who has behaviors has a whole different set. They like spinning, and they have them for different reasons, okay? But here's the other thing about this. Most of these STIM behaviors are not actually intended to communicate with you. Even though they are a communication, I'm not regulated right now, it's not meant to be a exchange-based communication. They're not saying it to anybody to expect any kind of reaction from anyone. I'm saying it because all of these behaviors are communication. So when your child lines things up, or they wave their hands or flap their hands, it does not mean that they want you to react. They're not even talking, non-verbally communicating with you. It's more like self-talk or self-soothing. Okay, I'm gonna be okay. My hands will warm up. If I do this, my hands will be okay. I'm excited, and so I need to burn off some energy, so I'm moving my hands when I talk. I really want to make a point, so I just found myself doing that. Subconsciously with your hands, right? These gestures, the things that are part of what anyone else would call nonverbal communication. And then what happens is people separate them. You see, they separate the normal, like wringing your hands or pacing the floor when you're anxious, with a child who's wringing their hands and pacing the floor because they're unregulated and anxious also, but they're trying to blame it on some neurological problem when actually it is just a STIM behavior where the child is using that behavior to self-regulate, okay? So let's take a look at one of the pages from Ben's book here. This page says, remember the title of this book is I Flap My Hands When I'm Happy. And this page says when Ben eats his favorite dessert, he flaps his hands. Ben flaps his hands when he is happy and it's okay. So flapping hands is Ben's happy STIM behavior. That's his typical behavior that he uses when he's happy. That little girl who was, watching the bubbles, she might be verbal. And so her hand flapping seems very normal when you're blowing bubbles. It could even be misconstrued to see if she was like trying to pop the bubbles. But no, she was just excited and moving her hands like I'm excited talking to you and moving my hands, right? And see, so what happens, what Ben is talking about and what I'm trying to talk about here is if those behaviors look different, than other typical, normal, whatever you want to call these behaviors, wringing hands, pacing the floor, whatever you do to regulate yourself. If you see it in your child and you call it wrong, or worse yet, you try to stop it, then you're going to actually do the opposite. Because if you stop a child from self-soothing, then what happens? They're not soothed anymore. They continue to be unregulated, and the unregulated behavior will escalate and elevate. So if a tantrum results because your child is super upset, and those things get triggered pretty quickly by one or another kind of stimulation, your child will immediately self-soothe whenever that stimulation is in the radar. They don't like loud noises. Any kind of threat of loud noises, they're going to start self-soothing. They know how to use these behaviors for themselves, to take care of themselves and monitor their own selves, right? So what we need to know here, right, just like this little girl is going to show us, stimming is okay. As long as, and you should allow your child, go ahead and allow your child to stim, because these behaviors that are safe and comforting for your child, they are okay, and not only okay, but necessary, okay? So when kids need to move or put things in their mouth or wave or rock or spin or any of those things, there is a process to learn how to use these behaviors and work with them to A, help your child self-soothe more easily, and B, help them be more accepted by the world, because it starts with you as their parent and caregiver. If you're not accepting of your child's STIM behaviors, if you are told by a therapist, ABA therapists are famous for squashing STIM behaviors, telling kids things like quiet hands, sit still, they don't give them many objects, because as soon as the kid gets many objects, they want to pick them up and sprinkle them or throw them or dump them or whatever. Those are STIM behaviors that your child is wanting or needing to use for self-regulation. And if you stop those behaviors, you're going to trigger more of them, or different ones is what usually happens. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about this process and working through. So step one, we're going to talk about with this little guy. And it's what you need to do is you need to use your intuition, where you are intuitively looking for that cause, the trigger that started this STIM reaction. What made your child start jumping up and down? What made them stick their tongue out? If they do these behaviors consistently, what is causing the reaction? And then you're going to understand more about the communication behind the reaction. So if you understand, wow, you are happy, you love these leaves, you love being outside, you love the sunshine, you're in the situation with your child, you're going to be the one to intuitively, with your brain and your heart and your connection with your child in the language facilitation zone, you know how they're feeling. You know what they're excited about. You know what they're mad about. If not, you can guess. And you can guess better than any therapist, whatever, upsets your child, because parents and caregivers spend their lives trying to make kids feel better. And what usually happens when they see these behaviors is they try to stop them, thinking the child needs you to feel better, where instead, if you encourage them to use these behaviors, they will self-soothe, which is better. It's more independent. They're not depending on you to do it for them. So the first thing is to intuitively watch and understand what is causing this trigger and talk about the cause. You love the leaves. You don't like when people talk loud. You love the taste of that chocolate cake, right? What is the cause of the trigger? Because your child is not focused on their behavior. Remember, it's subconscious. They're focused on what caused them to react, what caused this behavior. And if you talk about that thing while they are thinking about that thing, then the language is going in, and you're helping build the language so that next time they don't just flap their hands. Maybe they flap their hands and say cake. Right? So this is how it works with language facilitation. When you see the behavior, step one is interpret it. Use your guessing, use your intuition. What caused this? And talk about the trigger, because your child is thinking about the trigger. They're not thinking about their hands. They're not thinking about sitting down. They're not thinking about stopping. They're doing that thing. And they might not even be thinking about flapping while Ben's chewing his cake. He's flapping his other hand. He's not thinking about his hand. He's thinking about the cake. Talk about the cake, right? That's the most important step, number one. All right, number two, moving into number two. This is a two-part thing. So what we're going to do first is you need to look at the behavior that your child is doing, and you have to interpret, right? Number one, you interpreted what caused that behavior. Secondly, you have to interpret, is this Stim behavior actually a cry for help when they are communicating with you, or is it just that self-soothing behavior? Because not all Stim behavior is they can result. It results in soothing. Okay, that's what I meant to say. Not all Stim behavior results in soothing. So when you look at this little guy, let's watch him, all right? So does this Stim behavior appear to be a cry for help? Look at him. He's making eye contact with another person. He's looking around, and now he's retreating from that person. He's barely looking, and he's looking down and covering his ears and hiding from the stimulation that's coming from him. And then watch what happens. After he has another minute, he's going to react. He's going to self-soothe for a minute in this situation, and then he's going to be able to get back to work. Look at him. Now he's able to stop and look and focus, because frequent Stim breaks are actually necessary to help kids work through challenging situations, especially children who are nonverbal, right? They're gonna be doing these behaviors to help them work through step by step by step by step by step. So if there's a lot of pressure to perform on the child and you're not giving them breaks to process all this information, think about if you were asked to clean out somebody's basement or help them move, right? It's not your job. You're doing it because you want to. Most kids go to therapy because people tell them. They don't go because they're excited about going there. They know it's work. And even therapists will say it's time to work because you can get a break, but now we've got to work. And to get through the work, you have to have some kind of self-soothing because it's effortful. And these self-soothing behaviors, breaks in that hard work, are completely necessary, and they should not be contrived by you. I'll give you these choices of a break. A child should tell you what they want to do. You should know by watching them, and you shouldn't have to take breaks from hard work. Anyway, I'm just saying that if you have your child in hard work anyway. I don't believe in hard work at all for a child preschool age, because most of the children who are working with me, the parents of the children who are working with me, they are not doing any structured school at all. The most successful ones are having some sort of their own kind of homeschooling / private school / working with the teachers at their school, because the regular structured hardcore way all other kids learn is not the same for nonverbal kids who have Stim behaviors. Because kids who have regular Stim behaviors have regulation issues. It could be caused by physiological, could be caused by environmental, could be caused by emotional issues. But when a child is unregulated and you put them in a situation without regulation tools, they will fail over and over and over again. And it will break down, if not right away, after a while. Because what happens is, in the short term, you can sort of browbeat these things out and make your child stop, flapping their hands if you cue them to sit on their hands or something. But they will come up with something else. They'll start chewing on their shirt or throwing things, or maybe they'll suppress that anger or feeling of, whatever they were trying to stim off, because the energy just builds up. And then what happens is, at the end of the session or the end of whatever, you get the kiddo at home and it explodes in your house with all kinds of behavior that you didn't even expect, right? Because your child's system has been put in a state of dysregulation, unregulated place, and there's no way for them to work it out, right? If you were having a nervous breakdown and everybody made you, just ignored the fact that you were doing that and made you do more work, your nervous breakdown would continue. And that's what Stim behaviors are. A tiny, in the moment, nervous system breakdown. They just need to re-regulate and get it back together. And maybe in Ben's case, it's that taste of the chocolate cake. The dopamine fires off so high in his head that he's like, woo, I love chocolate cake. I want to eat more chocolate cake. And it triggers you that way. Everybody has these ups and downs in their emotions. The neurotransmitters are triggered by our memories, by our programming. That's why I said it can be physical, environmental, or emotional. Can cause any state of dysregulation. Any state of dysregulation will result in Stim behaviors, no matter who you are, no matter what diagnosis you have, no matter how old you are. They never go away. Everybody does Stim behaviors, you and I and everybody. Think about what yours are right now. You can tell. All right, so after we identify, so what we have to do is we have to decide, is this Stim behavior something the child is actually communicating to me that they need me to help them with? Or is this something that they just need me to hold space for? Because your action depends. It's very different depending on that Stim behavior. So if in the beginning, this little guy, at the beginning of this behavior, let me show you again. So at the very beginning, we're going to start this video over. He's just very frustrated. Whatever he's being asked to do is just too hard. And somebody says, do you need help? And he said help, and they're like, do you need help? Yeah. And he's like, yes. They prompted him to ask for help in this video. This isn't my video, I just found it. But here he is, look. In this space, when a child needs their own situation, they need their own space to process themselves, this is when you just hold space for them. You just say, you know, all right, it's cool. You're frustrated right now. You need a minute to process. I'm gonna stay right here and wait for you. Don't walk away and abandon the child. Just hold space at a distance, okay? That's gonna be really helpful for you. If you see the child struggling and they're, going through, step back, give them space to process that stuff out. But again, remember, it's safe. So if their space is there to start to throw things or whatever, then you're there with the safety net. You just are supportive, okay? It has to be supportive, not directive. And the other thing about that child, when you figure out intuitively what's going on, it does not involve questions of your child or anybody else. What do you think is going on? Why do you think he's upset? It's all you, your intuition. You're the one who's going to intercede here, either by helping the child get through their struggle in that situation, like in the first instance, or helping the child just by holding space for them while they recover and practice their own self-regulation. And then you observe, okay, you're feeling better, you get back to work, because that's the next step, okay? After you decide whether they need or not, then you got to talk about your action. All right, so here's a situation where this little girl is actually impinging on her father's space, and he's like, she's hurting him with that thing on her and pulling on his shirt. And so what is he doing? He's talking through his response. Wow, that hurts. Maybe you should try, or whatever, that kind of thing. That hurt my head. Give me a kiss. Like she gave him a kiss. And he's going to actually, she's not responding. So he's touching her hand and guiding her. And then here she ends up going away, right? So the idea here is that he has talked with her about his response. He didn't spontaneously grab her hand, make her stop. Ouch, that hurts. I'm feeling bad kind of thing. He told her calmly how he was unregulated by her response. He talked her through it. He made sure she understood by actually physically touching her hand and guided her to go away. He didn't say, why are you doing that? What are you doing? Why are you hurting me? He didn't ask her any questions. He explained the situation as it is. My feelings are affected. You must have some feelings that you're causing. You must need some kind of attention. You must need some kind of something. Otherwise, why are you here? And if I wasn't responding to you, you've pushed in and now you're actually got to hurt me to get my attention. Oh no, that's not necessary. Let me give you my attention anyway. And and show your child how to do it in the nice way. But if they need your attention and you aren't listening because they are communicating in a nonverbal way that you didn't pick up on, I mean, you miss nonverbal communication all the time. That's why everybody teaches their kids to talk. And it makes it a lot easier for everybody to understand what's going on. In this case, that's what's happening right there. Is just everyone is just understanding that this child is upset or happy or whatever. And you just talk about it as it is. And then you talk about, okay, you're upset. I'm just going to stand by and let you calm down. I'm not going to leave you alone. I'm not going to abandon you in your time of regulation need. I'm just going to hold space. And if you observe and the child's literally physically needs touch, then intuitively you'll know. Or you ask for permission. Would you like a hug? Just like they said, would you like help? Right? Don't make your child verbalize, okay, help me, please. They've already non-verbally communicated with extreme emotion that they want help. Confirm before you step in and don't direct their help. Oh, you need this, you need that. That's not what they need. They are not regulated. They need regulation. They know best how to regulate themselves. Give them space or give them what they need, not what you think they need, what you intuit know they need. I hope that I made that clear, because it's a big difference. If you try to help someone in need with your remedy, you can make it worse. And that's not what I want. I want you to work with these behaviors, not against them. And that's the whole point here, okay? All right, now moving on to the next step. Once you talk through your behaviors, then it's number 4, and it's the easiest one. And you talk about the solution that you have got, that you've managed to get with all of this wonderful stimulation. So this little guy likes to be spun. This mom says, I know you feel good when we spin. I'm gonna help you spin. Look how happy you are. You are feeling better. So she's actually using the stim that he likes to help him calm down. He can't spin that big chair alone. Maybe they've done it out on the swing before. And she didn't leave him. She's right there with him doing this behavior that he enjoys, interacting with him, right? And this is how you use these behaviors. So if your child likes to flap their hands, dance and flap. And if they get weirded out by you doing it, whatever, stop. Just join in with them and help them celebrate these stim behaviors instead of just like Angela did with Ben, and wait till you see the other ones. There's all kinds of things that he does, when he's wearing boots and he wouldn't wear, would only wear boots, when he would only eat certain foods, when he would only do certain things. That's going to be part of this It's Okay series, because truly everybody has things that we do to compensate for the struggles we have in life. And kids who process language in a different way, they use nonverbal communication in a wide variety of ways. And you as the parents and caregivers are the ones that know exactly how your kiddo is communicating. And that's how you know how to work with these nonverbal communications. Because while other people call them stim behaviors you need to stop, you need to learn to use them as clues to intuitively understand what your child is feeling and thinking about, and then use those things, those ideas that you share at the same time to talk about it. Because if you ever start to facilitate language with your child, you need to be always on the same page. That's step number 1 with language facilitation. You have to get in the language facilitation zone where you're both thinking about the same topic at the same time. Because if there's a disconnect, literally late talker kids, they're super good at just taking their energy, their focus, their everything, their listening. Even if they're face to face with you and you're looking right at them, they can take their zone and move it somewhere else in a heartbeat. With even looking past you, they look right through you, right? If that's ever happened with you, you know that you are not on the same page. You're not in the zone. When you're in the zone, you can always guess the meaning behind these behaviors. Look for the patterns. If they're regular STIM behaviors, your child will do it numerous times, right? And you'll start to say, he always does X when Y happens. And you'll look for those patterns. So whenever Y is coming in the future, you know maybe he needs a little X to help him get through the Y situation, because those were the solutions he was choosing himself. And when you use your child's and work with these STIM behaviors instead of trying to stop them, you'll see success in everything you're trying to teach your child, because regulation is necessary first. In the zone, regulated, calm, present, right now, thinking about what we're doing right now together, that's where all kids need to learn, no matter what is causing their issues. Because when you're in that zone, you can teach them anything. So hopefully these strategies were helpful for you. Let's see what we've got on the cards. There's Vanessa. Vanessa says, OMG, yes, my son's teacher told me to buy a teether for when he has the urge to bite something. A very good idea. Encouraging the thing. At first I thought maybe he just didn't know not everything goes in the mouth. Right, there is a real reason for those behaviors, right? Okay, so Joanne says, we actually have a therapy center that believes that STIM behavior is a negative effect towards society and the child's future. Oh my goodness. I allow our child to STIM to regulate and soothe. Why does society see this as a negative? You know, it's very, wow, Joanne. And I'm glad that you made that comment, because it's true. Here's a whole therapy center that sees stimulation behavior as a negative. And if you are assigned to go to work at that center, that's where the insurance sent you, or the school sent you, or whatever. Like I said, the most successful parents that I'm working with have avoided those situations. They've found other ways. And I know that it seems impossible in family situations to work around it, but you just have to do the best you can in the time that you have with your child to allow that. And you also have to remember, Joanne, that you're going to be in a situation that she's bottling up all of that stuff during that school day, and especially if they're not allowing her to STIM, like if they're kiboshing it, she's building that stuff up. So it's going to be more challenging for you at home. So I would really incorporate on the ride home, or, anything like that, and work with them on whatever reinforcers they're using to at least be soothing reinforcers for her, so that at least she's getting some STIM on the sly with squishy things or things like that. So that's going to be helpful to, hopefully get you through that. That's very, very tough. So how to understand the behavior of self-hitting. So, Nia, there are many, many kinds of aggressive behaviors. All behaviors are communication about feelings. And the thing is, when it gets to be bad enough that it's not safe and not fun, then that means that the triggers are so large that really giant subconscious behavior comes from. So if I see things like self-hitting, then I look hard at the environment of that child and eliminate 100% all pressures on that child to perform. Any prompting, any questioning, any hand over hand to get through things. Use only demonstration and modeling, and you're going to have a lot of fallout from that, like all that hitting behavior, because if you're fighting with kids who fight, they will fight back harder. And the bigger they get, the harder they'll fight. And when I see parents who have these things, that's crazy. So you need to figure out what's triggering. This process will help you figure out what's triggering, and then you have to work, because that hitting is a cry for help, because your child doesn't know how to solve that problem. It's so beyond them knowing how to solve. They need you to analyze the cause of the STIM, the triggers, and help them find ways to self-soothe that are not injurious to themselves or others. Because that's when it crosses into the safety issue. And that's when hardcore decisions need to be made about your environment. That's all I'm going to say. Because that's how I have solved that solution for families. I've got families in my in my program who have kids older than 10 who are doing this crazy behavior, punching holes in walls, etc. And their parents have stopped it with communication, language facilitation. So if you're trying to ABA that stuff away, you're on the wrong path. It's only going to get worse, and you need to make a change right now. Just so you know, everybody, we've got the full moon coming up Saturday. It's a giant blue moon, second full moon in the month. And it's powered by Taurus, which means it's the way we do things, and it's fueled by its conjunction, which means that the other planet that's sitting right in line is Uranus, which means that it's change. So this moon is triggering people to make fundamental changes in how we do things. In the U.S., we have our election on the day of the full moon, or just right soon after. So the real big deal about all of this is it is on the full moon. The real big deal about all of this is change is necessary to help your child do this. And with radical acceptance of these Stim behaviors, not radical, negation. Radical acceptance is really what's necessary. He says, are shaking legs for typical adults considered a form of stimming for a typical adult? Absolutely. Everybody does that, shaking legs, that kind of stuff. Every form of stimming is normal. That's what I'm here to tell you. Stimming is okay. All stimming is okay unless it is not safe. That's it. If it's safe, then it's other people's problem, right? Because the child is happy. That's what you think about when I talk to parents. If you've got a child that's got these Stim behaviors, everyone around the child are the ones who are upset by these behaviors. The child is fine. Right? So if you get fine with the child and match it in that good behavior and you teach them how to use words to communicate these feelings, those Stim behaviors decrease. They always do. They always decrease with language because Stim behaviors are nonverbal communication. So yep, it just means that whoever's shaking their leg is feeling a certain way. And I don't even know what. Some people shake their leg because they're nervous. Other people shake their leg because they're scared. Other people shake their leg because they're bored, right? Some people shake their leg for everything because that's their Stim behavior. Other people tap pencils, chew on these things, you know what I mean? Pick this part off of every pen you know. It's all Stim behaviors and it's all normal, right? It's humans regulating ourselves. There's people who watch pimple popping on TV, Stim behavior, ASMR, Stim behavior. It's all normal, right? It's all normal. It's all Stim behavior, okay? So Vanessa says, puts things in his mouth like crayons and plastic items, what I would call random when he's happy. That's his Stim behavior. Very good. How would I know what he's doing? I just repeat, you are happy. Well, you have to figure out why. You have to know. If he's just doing random things, what's he thinking about? What's he triggering? Follow him around. Look for patterns, okay? If it seems ultra random, that means you're not observing enough because you'll see patterns if you observe more. One instance isn't going to tell you. 5 will. 5 times you see your child do that, you'll be like, oh, it's this. He's doing that. It's always the X is related to Y. There's always a reason, a trigger, because otherwise, why would they be not regulated? They'd be feeling good, right? Because when they're regulated, they feel good. All right, so Pooja says, my 7-year-old nonverbal kid on the autism spectrum always put all the things in mouth and would want either chew or rip them into tiny pieces. I try to show him the function of that particular thing, but he still continues to put things in his mouth. How should I be responding to him? Pooja, just like Vanessa's therapist told her, you got to give him something to chew on, something that he wants to put in his mouth. You got to give him paper to rip up, opportunities to rip paper. If he needs to rip or move his hands, then you need to give him something to move his hands. If he likes that movement, give him a paper ripping station. Radical acceptance is the rule here. No matter what it is, as long as it's safe. Work around it to decrease it. Because when you work with it, like I said, if you work with it, you decrease it. You work around it, you teach with it, you use it for a reinforcer. It incorporates those things in your thing. Trying to teach your child that ripping paper that they're using to self-soothe is what we do to make paper mache is not the same zone. Your child is ripping paper for self-soothing. You're trying to teach them some functional task. It's not the same language facilitation zone. When you work with Stim behaviors, you treat it like a Stim behavior, which is normal. That's the whole point about all this, right? It's all normal. It's all normal. Can a Stim behavior be verbal like we're... Yes, Missy, I'm so glad you asked. Sorry, as I was reading. Can a Stim behavior also be verbal? Yes, it's called self-talk. So it starts with parroting, with the language. As kids are really developing language and parents do a lot of language facilitation, they will repeat the words parents say, but kids will also repeat the things that they want to watch. So like this video, let me show you this guy over here. As he's watching, like he could be doing this stim behavior when he sees the 5 seconds of video that he loves, right? He just sees that 5 seconds and he watches it over and over and again. And every time he sees it, he blinks his eyes like that. And he smiled at the end there. Did you see that? So what happens is these kids, they go over and over and over and over again watching their thing, and they'll use their eyes and they'll use their mouth. So the same thing if they listen to, oh boy, I did it. And they go walk around saying, oh boy, I did it. Or a little phrase from something they heard or part of a song. They'll start to match parts of those songs. They'll hum and sing the songs that they like. If they don't even know the words or aren't verbal yet, they'll do, you know, they'll start to use those things. It's all self-soothing. Why do people whistle when they walk? Why do people hum to themselves? It's self-soothing. So it definitely, stim behaviors can be verbal. Allow it. It's self-talk that's helping them regulate. It's also verbal self-stim is the best. I think it's the best kind of verbal self-stim because it actually helps build language facilitation and language processing systems in the brain. Stimming, you know, all stimming behaviors help build systems in the brain because they all work together. Your brain doesn't learn one area at a time, just vision or just memory or just speech or just understanding. It learns all together as a holistic functional unit through functional activities. So while you're, you know, getting dressed, you're talking about getting dressed and you're learning all those concepts, but you're using your eyes and your ears and all your senses at the same time. And those people who study these behaviors and understand what it is in these kids' brains that's different, that causes them to need more of these regulation behaviors, it is this hub that needs the training to help them process and organize the information that's coming in because their processing and organizing isn't very on point yet. It's hard for them. It's not compartmentalized enough. It's kind of like I talk about a swimming pool of language. It's the same with emotions. If they're surprised by things because they're not focused on it or in whatever, surprises trigger stim. They do. You know, so think about it. You're on a roller coaster, you go at the top, you know it's going to go down, but as soon as the G's hit you, you scream. That's a verbal stim. Okay, so all stimulation, all of these behaviors, verbal, nonverbal, related to the concept of self-regulation are stimulation behaviors, and they're all okay and they're all normal. And the way you go about it is radical acceptance and working with them with these strategies. So, all right. Thank you so much, everybody. This video is getting kind of long. Please, I'm going to give you the opportunity right now to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel because every week there's 2 new live Q&A opportunities with language facilitation strategies designed to take new action in every single video. There's more than 300 videos on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook page. Join my group. Get started. It is my mission to help you use this time of crazy new full moon energy to teach your child how to use spoken language so you can decrease these stim behaviors, which are just nonverbal communication, and shift it into the spoken language you're looking for. And if you want to work with me, visit wavesofcommunication.com and learn all about all of my resources available for parents on every single budget. Thanks again for watching today. I will see you all on my next video. Bye for now.